Howard Thurman so beautifully wrote, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive, coming alive. That, my friends, is what self-discovery is all about."
Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? You wear that mask for.
So I am super excited because today I am joined by Juley Thuy, and she is a mother and an activist from New Orleans with an eye for design and a heart for what matters that will make even the coldest of hearts swoon. She's also the blogger behind femmenextdoor.com, which is a site that uncovers the good life through original features, thoughtful editorials, and distinctive styling. It's about celebrating the good life with a little French finesse, all without leaving your backyard. Okay, so I've been following you for about 10 years now, which I cannot believe it's been that long. And the first thing I noticed about you, and I know this is like so materialistic and basic, but you are just so beautiful and your sense of style is so impeccable. So where does that sense of style come from?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's so nice because I feel like a mess right now. But 10 years, there's a lot of iterations there, a lot of trial and error. I even did
Yeah.
the paper bag pants back in the day. So definitely not proud of that. But I think my style in general, like lifestyle, is definitely influenced by American culture,
Yeah.
as well as French sophistication. So kind of marrying the two, and then obviously applying in a way that works best for
Yeah.
me. And that always goes back to comfort.
I feel like when I look back to my early 20s, the outfits that I would wear and the discomfort I would
Uh,
feel like, and it was all in the name of, and I'm doing this in air quotes right now, fashion. And it was ridiculous. I would go to the airport in heels.
yeah, me
Now,
too.
yeah,
I
I
can't
can't
even wear
imagine.
heels.
No. Yeah, same here. I don't even
Thank
remember
God
the
for
last time I
Activism.
wore them.
Thank you. No. Well, that's life, right? We learn, we live and we learn.
Yeah, we live and we learn and then we get
More
comfortable.
life skills, that's for sure.
Oh, okay. So I've been following you for 10 years since your Upper Line days, and I think even before your Upper Line blog. So, what made you transition to the gorgeous site that you have now, which is femmenextdoor.com? And what can we expect from you in the near future?
Thanks, Jacqueline. Well, after like personal blogging for 7 or 8 years, I just got exhausted with hearing myself talk
Hmm.
um, and promoting myself. And if you knew me, that is honestly, it's just so opposite of what I'm comfortable with. So actually when I had my son and I kind of just evolved and observed more women and became more in tune with other women and watching them, I wanted to create a space that highlighted the girl next door, which is the ethos of Femme Next Door.
Hmm.
Um, and I think just about any woman has like their own line of thinking and truly just highlighting how you don't have to be particularly talented in any regard or just like have a certain background to be interesting. So I wanted to
Mm.
that kind of platform and give um, some focus on this perspective of the girl next door. And so sometimes you'll see us sprinkling career stuff, sometimes not. But for the most part, we're focusing in and really honing in on what is she thinking, what does she believe in, what is unique to her perspective,
Mm.
um, all with like a specific style in mind as well.
Yeah.
Moving forward, content has been very stalled. But moving forward, and true to the ethos from the very beginning, you'll continue to see more diverse thinking women
Mm.
who are from every walk of life, sharing their perspectives and more think pieces as relates to our current landscape right
Ooh.
now.
I love that. I
Mhm.
love that. And I love what you said about women not having to have any particular type of talent. I feel like we're all talented in one way or
Yeah,
another, but
sure.
society puts so much pressure on us to have like everything figured out in one direction.
Yeah.
I'm such a multi-passionate human that that's been really difficult for me.
Yep.
And even with this podcast, I started the podcast in February, but then I started doing interviews maybe a month and a half ago. So very like I'm still very new to doing interviews.
Such a natural.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. But one of the things somebody commented on, they were like, you have such interesting friends. And in my mind, I was like, of course my friends are interesting. But what I think is every single human is interesting, especially if
Absolutely.
you ask them questions about stuff that they're interested in. And I
Exactly.
think you do a really good job of that with Femme Next Door. I mean, I have gone to the website multiple times and I love just clicking around and looking at the editorials because the photography and the writing and the branding, it's all just so seamless.
Thank
Like,
you.
I feel like branding is like breathing for you.
Well, I will say that I kind of built it, but it's writers and contributors that round off the content.
Mm,
And I'm really glad to hear that.
yeah. Oh, it's just so beautiful. I'm excited for people to hear about it and be able to check it out.
I need to get back to work actually on that.
Oh my gosh. I feel like quarantine just stalled everything.
Yeah, you would think you'd have the energy, but not. Honestly, I just can't look at anything else. You know,
Yeah. Well,
lot more
and
important
I
things.
know, yeah, and I know what we're going to get into the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement too, but I feel like the last 4 months have just been so energetically heavy
Yeah. Yep.
that to be thinking about fun stuff like fashion or clean beauty or whatever the case is, it just seems like all of that needs to be taking a backseat right now. So I know exactly what you're talking
I'm
about.
with you. I'm
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. As we all become more conscious buyers in the light of the Black Lives Matter movement and the environmental impacts of fast fashion,
Mhm.
what are some businesses you love and support regularly? I'm just personally, I am becoming so much more conscious with how I spend my money. And
Yeah.
so if you would shed a little light on that, I'd really appreciate it.
I'm learning a lot myself with these new brands that we're all being introduced to. So I can't speak on the fast fashion piece yet, besides
Mm.
2 Days Off Clothing, which is an LA-based brand
Ooh,
um, that everyone should check out. Gina Stovall is the founder of that
I'm
brand,
going to
and
write it
she
down.
does really beautiful work. Um, Definitely the antithesis to fast fashion. Um, Other businesses that I've been a long-term supporter of, one is a newsletter by my friend Patrice Sosu, who she's made a cameo on Femme Next Door, and she's gonna be our next Femme Next Door actually.
Okay, cool.
It's a weekly newsletter that is one hilarious and shares a lot of her insight, and she's the quintessential Femme Next Door. But if you want more of her, definitely sign up for her newsletter. It's called the Little Gems Newsletter.
The Little Gems newsletter.
Yes,
Okay.
she's amazing. Actually, just she's got a couple of products that have stemmed from this newsletter, but she's a boss and she's actually, I think, full time. She is a product developer for beauty brands. And on
Oh
the
my
side, she
gosh.
has little gems. Yeah, she's
I
very
cannot wait to sign up for this newsletter because
yes,
I'm diving so deep into clean beauty right
yep,
now.
yep.
I mean, I love makeup, I love glam, but I also love comfort.
I love what your makeup right now looks beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks. But I just, as I get older,
Mhm.
I, again, like bringing it back to consciousness, I'm like, what am I putting on my face? How is it affecting my endocrine system? How is it affecting all of my hormones?
Yeah.
What are going to be the lasting effects of all of this? So I think it's so important to talk about it. And then also, I feel like this podcast is in the self help space, in the
Mhm.
personal development
Yeah.
space. But I think what people don't talk about in the personal development space very much is beauty and
Mhm.
glamour and stuff that so
Yeah.
many of us who are interested in self development,
Mhm.
you know, we're not really talking about it in this space. And so I want to shed light on it. And I want to get as responsible as I can be for everything that I'm putting on my skin and everything I'm putting my name behind too,
Yeah,
as we talk about it. So I can't wait to sign up for that newsletter.
Yes. Well, she definitely talks more about different things, but she has some good insight. I bookmarked her nighttime routine newsletter, and I actually use the tips to this day. She's brilliant.
Okay.
Another company that I would definitely recommend is Resilia. It's the company I actually work for. Our CEO, our
How do you
CEO.
spell that? Yeah.
That's RESILIA. Resilia.com, and our founder is an incredible, intelligent Black female founder. And what we do is we streamline the nonprofit process, so we help nonprofits become nonprofits. And definitely recommend that, especially in this space where people are wanting to give and give back and be a part of the solution. That's a tech company that I definitely recommend supporting, and it's based here in New Orleans. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
And New York offices.
I miss New Orleans. I haven't been back since I moved, which feels so weird.
Maybe when you do your little trip, you can have a little stop.
I miss the food so much and I miss the culture. It felt like, I feel like living in New Orleans kind of feels like living in Europe because the culture is just so drastically different from the rest of the United States.
I know. Sometimes I forget we're in a bubble. So
yeah,
it's a good bubble.
It really is, but in like the most delicious bubble in the world.
It is. It's a nice bubble. I also wanted to point out Rachel Cargill's work. I don't know if you follow her on Instagram. Okay, good.
I do.
She's incredible. She's taught me a lot. Super intelligent, and her two organizations are rooted in so much goodness and like education that I definitely recommend anyone who's in the stage of like discovery to for education.
And you know what? I'll link all of these resources in the show notes too, so people can just click and follow. Okay, next question, my dear. I want to get down to the nitty-gritty because I have watched you evolve in the online space as such an activist, and it's so inspiring. But I want to know what sparked your activism. Was it a specific event or a book or a firsthand experience?
First, I want to say, it's more of an accidental activism. I think the word activism just means you care. And I think a lot of us are activists in that sense. I think when I think about my background, I was always drawn to different cultures because I never felt like I fit in with either the Vietnamese culture or even like the white community. So I grew up in Southern Louisiana, and the school I went to was, I think, 50% white, 25% Black, 25% Native American, 2% Asian. So I was used to being the minority, but I was always used to being around different people. And then I went to Loyola University, which is a liberal arts school. Obviously learned a lot there, surrounded myself with different people. But I was the president of the Asian Student Organization at Loyola and worked hand in hand with, and became very close friends with the other student leaders who led the Muslim Student Association, the Black Student Union, the LGBT organization. So I think it just I naturally gravitated towards these kind of efforts. But they definitely and profoundly shaped how I see the world and how we can make impact. And my time there also led me to Teach for America, which is where I met you, obviously. It led me to teaching at a low-income school in New Orleans, and then it taught me how advantaged I was in just opposed to other communities, but it also taught me a lot about the white savior complex. So I think all of those experiences combined have definitely shaped my activism, because it's when you have all those experience, everything is like in this sense, it should be common sense. That it isn't common sense.
So not
one particular moment, but I think I've always been drawn to others.
Mhm.
Um,
That makes so much sense. And I think obviously I relate to what you said with the white savior complex and working in a Title I school and, just experiencing some of the hardships that those students had to go through. But
mhm,
also what stood out to me is your experience at Loyola working with the different student organizations,
yeah.
because I think, not I think, I feel like I know that racism is rooted in fear. And
Yeah.
when humans connect with other humans, whether it be a Muslim or
Yeah.
somebody who is Asian or somebody who
Yeah.
is Black or somebody who is Indian or somebody who's Native American or somebody, whatever,
Um,
we realize when we have those conversations and we swap stories and we look into each other's eyes,
mhm,
we're all made of the same stuff.
yeah. Mhm.
And when you have those experiences, especially at a formative age or a young age,
Exactly.
it does, like you said, I think that's the perfect phrase. It becomes common sense. You go, why wouldn't I say something about this?
Exactly.
No, this is just another human. This isn't anybody.
Exactly.
There's nothing different about us except the way that we look.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Oh, I mean, well, before I go down a rabbit hole, I'm going to keep asking you some questions because I feel like I could talk about that all day. It's so
That
frustrating
you
to me.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
fear that people allow themselves to be led by fear
Mhm.
instead of by love, because I
Yeah.
feel like inclusivity is human nature.
Mhm.
I feel like exclusivity is something that we learn and then continue to perpetuate because that's what we know, but that
Right.
is not human design.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's really up to us. I think we'll get to this later, but it's really up to how we parent and how we
Mm,
grow the confidence to remove ourselves from those comfort zones, because the people who are rooted in fear, they're very they unlikely have gone anywhere else besides their hometowns.
yeah.
And I think that's why we see that's why we're frustrated with this very common sense
Yeah.
um, argument.
Yeah. Oh, that makes so much sense. Okay. What does diversity mean to you?
Actually, I think diversity is a concerted effort to surround ourselves with people of different backgrounds, cultures, and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it means intentionally leaving our comfort zones, like the friends and family that we grew up in
Mm-hmm.
order to evolve our perspectives. For some of us, it comes naturally. For others, it takes more work. It takes more bravery. And then when it comes to raising our families, it's being intentional in who our kids are surrounded by and those types of people and how they think. The literature that we bring into our households, and also the environment that we introduce our kids to.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I feel like that's so poignant. And as you were talking, I was reminded of an experience that I had speaking about being in intentionally diverse situations. I was in Dubai last year,
Wow. Yeah.
and I met a bunch of people. I'm a little bit obsessed with the Middle East. I studied
Uh-huh.
it in college. I love that it's so different from Western culture, and
Mhm.
I'm naturally drawn to things that are like very, very different from what I know because I love adventure.
Yeah.
Um, but as I was in Dubai, I met this woman who was like, "You have to come to my house for dinner." And I did. And this dinner was one of the happiest moments of my life. It was this woman she was Moroccan and
Mhm.
French. And then
Wow.
her husband was full Italian.
Oh God.
And there were two Colombian people there and somebody from Peru, and then me. And so the conversation was so incredible and delicious in every
Mhm.
way because we had all these perspectives coming together and some differing perspectives
Mhm.
too. But what we related on was experience, like all
Yeah.
these shared experiences, even though we come from different, literally like different corners of the globe. And
Yeah.
none of us were from United Arab Emirates or Dubai, yet we're all there as expat. It was just
That's
such a cool
beautiful.
experience.
And what a great opportunity. That is such that not a lot of Americans have that experience, and I
Yeah.
think that worldly opportunity that you had is really rare, and I wish more people would be open to that.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm so just naturally drawn to travel and to
Yeah.
experiencing new things.
Mhm.
But for anybody that's listening that would say, like, oh, I don't want to go to the Middle East, or I don't want to go to Africa, or I don't, whatever it is, it's all fear.
Yeah.
Once
Mhm.
you go to these places,
Yeah.
like there's something, I don't know exactly how to articulate it, but I feel like there's something in the human spirit that wants to see and do and experience.
Absolutely. Even if you can't go across the pond, there's different people here. Like you go
Oh,
there, that's one of the great things about being in the States is like there are pockets of really diverse areas. The question is if you're going to leave your small town to go visit them and explore and really immerse yourself,
mhm.
or just talking to your neighbors that might look a little different.
Yeah. And even, I mean, I feel like now in the United States, even knowing your neighbors is probably something that is rare. So
Yeah,
maybe that's a good first step, is like
I'm sure.
bringing your neighbors some cookies and saying, hey,
I believe that. I do that all the time. Yeah,
yeah. I
absolutely.
and I feel like too, talking about diversity and being intentional about the way that we raise our children. Obviously, I don't have kids yet, but I think it all just starts with conversation. It doesn't have to be this like intimidating, huge mountain to climb. It can be, hey, do you want to get a cup of coffee?
Yeah, absolutely. And my mom, she always, I learned it from her. She always would bring like egg rolls to our neighbors and always be the first one who extends that, like, I don't even know if that's an olive branch, but she always
Yeah.
extends like, that welcome, whether they want to receive it or not. But, it just takes one person to take that first step.
Yeah. Oh, I love that's it. That's like your mom reminds me of the Maya Angelou quote where she was like, do you know what I'm talking about? I'm going to butcher it, but she said something to the effect of, people won't remember what you said or what you
Mhm.
did, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maya.
Ah, I love her so much. Such a brilliant
We
human
have so
being.
much to learn.
I know. I need to go back and reread all of her books. Um, okay, next question. How have you learned from a disagreement or difference with others? And I asked this question because I think it's a good question, but also because I've seen you online being, I mean, some of the things that people have said to you while you're pouring out your heart, like standing up for people. I mean, I've messaged you about it because I've been so flabbergasted. I can't believe that people actually speak like that and say those kinds of things to you. So, what have you learned from those super difficult disagreements?
I will say that I've learned how to identify when it's an aggressive ignorance. And when I say
Mm.
that, it's people who are just fishing for attention, or fishing for a fight. And they will use pretty much every rhetoric that they can pull up to deflect and excuse whatever it is that they believe. So, with that, for those conversations, I have like a zero bullshit policy. So I just don't engage.
Yes.
When it comes to racism in particular, I think it's fundamentally wrong, and that's not something that, if you are on the aggressive ignorant side, it's not worth anyone's time.
Hmm.
um, but I have learned a lot about white privilege and how I bought into the model minority myth by listening to others. So, when someone takes their time out to educate me, I give them my full attention so that I can listen and ask questions, and then ultimately it helps me better understand um, the situation at hand. And those conversations are always I'm very grateful for.
Mm.
Um, and I've also learned how to check my sources and figure out how to maintain focus on what I'm
Mhm.
trying to achieve. So,
Mhm.
I definitely weed out the ones that aren't worth the time, but always try to bring it back to what issue we're talking about. And I think that's very important whenever we're having online dialogue.
Yeah, because some of those online dialogues can just be a total waste of time and energy.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, yeah, I like that
yeah.
no bullshit policy.
I really do, and you'll see it. I don't play nice just to play nice, and I think it's very
Yeah.
important. when it comes to racism in particular.
Well,
Some
'cause
things I'll,
people,
I have patience for, but not this.
yeah, because people are at stake. Like if somebody tells me they don't like my makeup or my hair or my outfit, like whatever.
Yeah.
But people are,
Get
yeah,
it?
people's livelihoods and lives are at stake. And
Yeah.
so I think now is the time to have a zero bullshit policy. And I just really appreciate that about you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. um, yeah.
So, what does unfairness mean to you? And what feels unfair right now?
Unfairness in our current context, to me is like the long-term abuse and dehumanization of the Black community.
Oof.
Especially when you juxtapose it with how police officers are still being treated, white supremacists, and even Asian Americans. I'm talking to my community.
Yeah.
Is at the core wrong and very unfair.
Yeah. Yeah. It again, like going back to that human level, we're all just humans.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we talk to other humans, the more what we look like becomes a moot point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And it's unfortunate, just our, lack of travel and perspective and being open to different cultures has led us to where we are right now. So hopefully we can all change that.
Yeah, yeah. And I've been reading So You Want to Talk About Race,
Mm-hmm.
which is really, really good. And it's a frustrating read because you realize, or I realize as a white privileged woman, like some of these nuances that I was never aware of. And truly, like, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I thought I had kind of a good understanding of the situation from doing Teach for America, from working in a predominantly Black school and like experiencing what those kids went through on a daily basis. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Yet now at 33, I still feel like I'm being schooled.
Yeah,
There's so
we
much
all are.
subconscious bullshit
Yeah.
that we have been taught, or even what I just read about was this conversation that the author had online, and somebody had shared like it was a very racist meme, but it was supposed to be funny. And that got me thinking about all the types of like racist things that are meant to be comedy that are shared on a daily basis,
Yeah.
that are so harmful. And I think a lot of the time people, unless it's affecting them, they don't realize it in the moment. But what's happening is that subconscious belief is then being encouraged to
Mm-hmm.
continue to be that way in our minds.
Yeah.
So yeah, it runs
It's deep.
it runs deep, but
Mhm.
I'm so ready to like exorcise the demons.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's time to detox. And the first step is to acknowledge it. And that's what
Yeah.
we Yeah.
And getting people to acknowledge it is going to be difficult, but I just did a podcast on this on Monday. I was like, we can focus on all of the hardships and the roadblocks we're going to experience, or we can focus on what the future is going to look like, which is going to
Right.
be
Absolutely.
brighter and more cultural, more filled with art and laughter and love and relationships. And while I don't want to be naive and say like fixing racism in this country is going to be an easy feat, because I know that it's not, I want to focus a lot of my energy on all that we have to gain from the experience
Right.
versus
Yep.
all that we have to like change in our own personal lives. Because I feel like that part, even though it's uncomfortable, is not the most difficult part of the experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Gloria Steinem said, the first problem for all of us, men and women, is not to learn, but to unlearn. What advice do you have for people waking up to systemic racism and its deep roots?
I'm also someone who's just waking up to systemic racism, and I think education is number one. Is really diving deep into those uncomfortable books and movies and everything that has been trying to educate us for so many years, and just really throwing
Mm.
yourself into your own history lesson, because obviously we haven't been taught the right lessons. And then beyond that, really listening to Black leaders in this space. As an Asian American woman, that's what I've dedicated my energy to, is listening from the Black community. And I don't think it's anyone's place to shape this conversation besides people who are leading the charge and who can understand the problem at its core. The rest of us are here to support it.
Hmm.
And so with that, it's just really knowing your place, either as a white woman, as an Asian person. Um, it's time for us to really sit back and listen. And I don't say that because everyone else is saying that. It's really, we need to observe and we need to support. We need to be on the in the trenches with them. So
Yeah.
we need them to light the way and follow suit.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not going to be like a year long thing. It's going to be decades in the making. So,
Yeah.
um, and then it goes back to who we're building up at home. Like, who
Yeah.
are we surrounding ourselves with? Who's around our children, which I'm extremely, extremely strict about nowadays. And we can control what's around our sphere of influence as well. So
Yeah.
taking it to the personal level.
Yeah. Oh, that is so true. And I think I completely agree with you. Like, my job right now is not to share my experience, it's to
Mhm,
share in the Black community's experience and hold
mhm,
as much compassion and empathy without
mhm,
any kind of opinion other
mhm.
than racism is wrong. How do I get better?
Yeah, I mean, we're from two different backgrounds, so what we can do beyond, without burdening our Black brothers and sisters, is to speak to our community, and that's what I've done. With my Instagram, I've been pretty quiet. I haven't had that much interest in engaging, but what I can control is who I'm speaking to, and we can speak to our own communities, and we can identify the racism within our own communities and our own families and take it from there. And I think that's a big part of doing this work, is starting at home.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think too, you have a fairly large platform. I have a little bit of a platform. And I think it is our responsibility to put out information that is going to be good for the whole.
Yep, absolutely.
I do, like, because within the last week, we're recording this on June 7th, I think.
Today
Um,
is the
wait,
11th.
11th. Do not ask me about numbers because I am terrible. Okay. So we're recording this on June 11th. This will come out in a couple weeks, but we're coming off of, a really major time of protests in the United States.
Mhm,
And I struggled over the last week with myself with going, what is important for me to be sharing right now?
mhm,
And what I came to the conclusion of, like, none of my normal weekly content is important.
mhm.
None of it.
Yeah.
None of it. And I felt like it was without a doubt my responsibility to share where I stand on all of this, just in the small chance that somebody within my community would wake up to it or take
Mhm,
notice,
mhm,
or even link arms,
mhm.
in
Yeah.
this fight. So, okay. Um, what resources do you recommend for learning about systemic racism? And what is one thing we could do today to begin to help heal our country and create a better future for all victims of racism?
I'll start with that last question. I think there are three things that I've learned because I have gotten this question. Um, it's really to identify your purpose, which you already have. Like, we don't want our kids to have to fight through this. We don't want them to have to wake up again as we're all doing right now. So if you can really first identify the purpose in whether you're posting about something or if you're going to a protest, really think about why you're doing it. And that's going to really help root you. Because the second part of that is to really understand what you're sacrificing. You could be sacrificing followers, or you could be sacrificing really toxic relationships within your personal life and within your family, and really being okay with it, because you can't become confident in your messaging without understanding what you're willing to lose. And for me personally, I'm willing to lose a lot on a personal Instagram level, followers, in order to make sure that this message is heard.
Yeah.
And that really gives me confidence to continue speaking out, continue having really difficult conversation, kind of leading that conversation within the Asian American community. So I definitely think it starts there. You really have to be rooted in why you're doing certain things, why this issue is important to stand up to at this point and to continue standing up to, and then determining, the sacrifices that you're willing to make in order to really drive towards that. Oh yeah, some of the resources that I definitely recommend is the 1619 Project. It's a podcast.
So good.
So informative, very educational.
Yeah. And talk about like white privilege and waking up to the reality of what's not taught to us in our textbooks.
I know.
I mean, yeah, I was highly disturbed after listening to that podcast.
It's a great starting point for sure, so that you can start unpacking and unlearning what our history books have taught us. Some of the movies that I have been moved by is Selma, which is, have you watched Selma?
And Ava DuVernay, I love her.
Yes. So I think they're all available on like all the streaming services now. So those are really great starting points in terms of understanding the systemic racism that's built in our institutions. And then I also follow the Equal Justice Institute, which is what Brian Stevenson, it's his, I think it's a nonprofit, but basically a law firm that like has been fighting for the end of mass incarceration for like 30 years now. And that's what Just Mercy is about. He's a very intelligent man, and I definitely follow his work. But if you notice, all of those resources are created by Black leaders, and I think that's really important. Like we need to understand the situation through the lens of the people who have been experiencing it and have been fighting for it, not so much from a white or Asian perspective.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I think too, I live in Georgia, and we just had our primary elections.
How did that go, by the way?
I mean, I voted by I mailed in my ballot. So yeah, because it was a nightmare on Tuesday, like so many tech glitches and stuff. So I'm really glad that I did the absentee ballot. But one of the things that I noticed, because of everything going on, there are a lot of Black candidates in my area. And so I think one of the ways I'm trying to stop systemic racism is by voting for amazing Black leaders, because we need more leaders. We need more Black leaders and more people of all different types of backgrounds in our government making these policies. I mean, again, like, it's a common sense thing, yet it's so crazy to me that in 2020, our government is still primarily white men.
And they'll do anything to keep it that way.
Yeah. So I think that's putting where we're putting our vote also matters. Where we're putting our money matters, where we're putting our vote, where we're putting our time and energy. All of it has the power to really, really make a difference. Okay, last few questions. If you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
I said, if everyone you surround yourself looks the same, it's a sign to start being brave.
Can you say that one more time? That's so good.
I said, if everyone you're surrounded by looks the same, it's time to start being brave.
Yeah. Oh, I think that'll be the quote graphic. Yeah, that's so good.
It's the
Okay.
truth. I really believe
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree with you. And, again, white privileged woman. So I know I'm speaking from privilege, but I've had the opportunity to travel. And I
Yeah.
think that for me, because I've experienced so many diverse cultures from like Peru,
Hmm.
Peruvian, like South American culture, European culture, Indonesian culture.
Hmm.
You just realize, like, again, I keep repeating myself, but we are all human. We all have the same basic wants and needs. And what else is there?
Yeah. Why is it even a debate?
Ex-
It's
ex-
fun.
yeah, exactly. Why is it even a debate? Why is it anything? Okay. Um, who or what inspires you?
Well, I'm definitely inspired by the girl next door. That's why I created Femme next door. So I'm always interested to hearing, what people are thinking and uh, how they lead their lives. So, especially the girl next door is often overlooked. So I always am interested in what she's about.
Yeah, women are fiercely interesting.
Yeah, some not Karens, but you
Yeah. But yeah, as a whole, I feel like we are incredibly interesting. Okay. Is
know.
there a mantra or something that inspires you to hold on during really tough times?
Yeah, I just got Cleo Wade's new book, Where to Begin. Add
Oh,
that to the resource. It's great.
yeah.
It's just like a giant poem of like um that's very fitting for this time. And
Mm.
there's a lot of great inspiration. But the one thing that she says is called change making belongs to all of us. And I thought that's very inspirational.
Yeah. Oh, she is
She's from.
modern day Maya. Yes. Actually, I saw her speak twice.
Oh,
The
nice.
once in New York City and then once where I live in Athens. And she is just,
She's an angel.
oh, she's such a kind, calm
Yeah,
presence. And you can tell immediately how much she cares
yeah.
and loves people.
She's inspired so many people to just have that same grace. I definitely can use some of her tact, but she's incredible.
Yeah.
Find her book.
Yeah, I have Heart Talk. Actually,
Oh,
I'm looking at it right now because I have
yeah,
it right next to
such
my
a good
desk.
one.
Yeah, it's so good. Okay. Um, are there any books that you love that you feel like helped you become who you are?
um, I'm currently reading The Color of Success. So
Hmm.
it's by this Asian American author, which is teaching me a lot about the model minority myth and how that was kind of created to divide us. So I'm unlearning. So this is one of the books that I'm using to unlearn our history.
Yeah, can you like give a little synopsis of what the model minority myth
Yeah.
is?
I'll try my best, and please don't fault me for messing this up. But
No, not at
basically,
all.
and I think in the 60s, the U.S. government intentionally gave access to Asian Americans to enter the country to serve as an example of like, hey, you can anybody can achieve the American dream, and it was systematically done in a way that oppressed African Americans. I am really diving into this whole thing, but a lot of us, my generation included, bought into it because we were like, okay, well, if our parents can make it, then anybody can make it. So why can't African Americans make it? So it really was a tool that the U.S. government used to keep us divided, use us as an example, and you can see that in like microaggressions, like, oh, you're Asian, so you must be good at math, things like that. So
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
pretty prevalent right now, but it was all intentionally done. So that's a lot of unlearning I've had to do in the past 2 weeks.
Well, that's some unlearning that I need to learn too, because I don't really know anything about the minority myth.
Yeah, I know. Well, as a white woman, you probably have heard of the stigma that Asians are good at math, and they're
Yeah.
generally a submissive group that will just stay quiet, they work hard, all of those things, that even that dialogue and that stereotype kind of pits us against each other in terms of
Yeah.
races.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it
It
might be a little bit
it
more.
like automatically tries to have us hone in on our differences
Yeah,
versus
and
because
using
Americans are loud and obnoxious.
yeah, and using like one race to show like, hey, anybody can make it here. And really it oppresses Black Americans because it's like, oh, if they can make it, why can't you make it? And it's just an ugly, very systematic way that it was done. Pretty much under the radar too. So.
Oh, I
But you'll
just
see a lot of Asian
mm,
Americans, unfortunately, not supporting Black Lives Matter, and that is really my purpose in speaking out to my community is because we have all
mm.
bought into this um, motto minority myth, and we're all needing to unlearn it so that we can support this movement.
Oh my gosh, that
I know, isn't it a mind f? Like
yes, I
definitely
just feel
mind
like
f
I
for
don't know
me.
what to yeah, I just feel like I don't know what to say. Like
Yeah,
the systemic stuff that has happened, I think 1619 when I listened to that,
yeah,
that blew the lid off for me where I realized the American dream is not the American dream for
that's the
everybody.
white man's American dream.
Yeah.
I would definitely send you this resource. I'm reading it myself. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Whoa. Okay. Hold it together. Bring it back. Bring it back. What do you want people to know beyond a shadow of a doubt?
I want people to know that it's like our generation. And when I say our generation, I think it's the combination of Gen Z and millennials, because I'm not really sure where I fall. But we're like the key to change. And I really believe that
Yeah. Hmm.
because we got the work ethic of the boomers, but we have the courage of, the younger generation
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
ballsiness of the younger generation
Yes.
to actually do something about it. And you see this in action at protests and people speaking up. So I really have a lot of hope because of that.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. I feel like our
That is
generation,
enough.
we're change makers. We really are. And I think we saw the baby boomers and we were like, okay, what did they do well? Now,
Mm.
everything else that we feel like needs to be changed, let's just shake it up. And sometimes
We
we
have
get
to
a
break
bad,
down the systems that
yeah,
the boomers made, actually. Yeah.
yeah. And I think sometimes we get a bad name for that because our generation really is shaking things up so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah. Hmm.
But as you and I both know, that's exactly what needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So where can people find you online?
On Instagram, you can find me Juley James. That's JuleyJames. That's my personal platform. And then Femme next door, if you want more editorial.
Gorgeousness. You're just so naturally good at it. Like your eye for design. I
Thanks.
just honestly, I have looked at your stuff so many times and gone, how do I incorporate more of this like je
Well,
ne sais
me too, to
quoi?
be honest. I'm like, if I had, if, well, I
Yeah.
hopefully you feel like you can take any of that home because really it's just like all the girls I'm featuring, that's really their aesthetic. I'm just kind of putting
Yeah.
it together.
Well, you're an amazing curator and editor. So
Thank you so much.
thank you so much for taking the time to do this too
Thank
and
you.
to
So
talk
much
about a
fun.
really difficult topic, you know?
I hope it helps. It
Yeah.
definitely helps me to speak to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my wish for this podcast in particular is to bring on people of all different types of backgrounds to
Hmm.
have conversations like this in a safe space where
Hmm.
it's going to be judgment free, but where people can listen in and hear different perspectives and be educated in a loving way.
That's awesome. I'm so happy
Yeah.
you're doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, thank you for being here. And I'm
Thanks,
going to end.
girl.
You have been listening to Self Discovery with Jacqueline Steele. For more information or to submit a question, please visit jacquelinesteele.com/selfdiscoverypod. On Instagram, I am at Jacqueline Steele, and that's JACLYNSTEELE. And on YouTube, you can find me at youtube.com/official Jacqueline Steele. If you haven't already, please sign up for my High Vibe Thursday newsletter, where I send one email a week aimed at inspiring and elevating your day because you freaking deserve it. You can sign up in the show notes or by visiting my website, jacquelinesteele.com. May you go and be big and brave and bold today. Remember that life gets easier when we know who we are. And as always, and until next time, thank you, thank you, thank you for listening.